The Batman Part 2. Obviously, we know this movie. It's coming. It's happening. It's in development. Matt Reeves has been working on the script. But the question is when? I mean, we know the movie comes out in 2025. But when are we going to start seeing and hearing more about this movie? Because at this point in time, this movie is really still just in concept, at least from our perspective. Obviously, Matt Reeves, he knows what he's doing with this movie, but we don't. We don't know what's happening with the Batman 2. We just know it's a sequel, but we don't know about the villain, what the story is going to be, any of that. And obviously, the writer's strike and actor strike are going on right now, so we're not going to be hearing anything for a while now. But it is now being reported that the Batman Part 2 will start filming this March 2024, of course, which will be, just a little over a year before the sequel will release in theaters in 2025. So that's definitely really exciting. Obviously, hopefully the strikes will be over by then so this can actually happen. But currently that's the plan. They're going to start filming. They're going to start shooting in March 2024. So that's really cool. And of course, when they start shooting, we're going to see set photos and we're going to start hearing more details about this film. But again, as always, as we've talked about numerous times on the channel since the first movie came out, is one of the biggest things and one of the biggest questions is who's the villain? Who is the villain going to be in the Batman Part 2? Obviously, we set up the Joker at the end of the first movie. There's been so many various theories about the Court of Owls. So are we going to see either of those come into play in a big way for the Batman Part 2? Or are those going to be things that are kind of left more for the future? Because obviously this isn't just one movie franchise. This isn't just going to be a trilogy. This is an expanding universe. We have HBO Max series in development. We know Penguin is coming. We know we're getting the Arkham Asylum series. So what's happening next, and specifically for the Batman Part 2, who will be our villain? And the one we have heard a little bit about is Clayface. Clayface is supposedly a part of the script of the Batman Part 2, and with this new news coming out of the shoot time kicking off in March 2024, comes more reconfirmation that Clayface will be a part of this movie. Now, nobody's saying for a fact that he's the main villain of this movie, but Clayface will be in the Batman Part 2, which is interesting for many reasons, because Clayface is a character that we've already heard about in this franchise previously. First of all, Mike Flanagan has pitched a Clayface solo movie to Warner Brothers Discovery in DC. Now, there's been some people saying that that's actually going forward, that's actually in development. There's other people saying it's not. Now, if this does end up happening, is it going to be a Clayface movie in James Gunn's DCU? Or will it be a Clayface movie that will take place in Matt Reeves' The Batman universe? Because even before Mike Flanagan pitched his Clayface movie, there were reports going around, actually from the trades, confirmed reports that Matt Reeves was developing solo villain movies for the Batman universe, including Clayface, Scarecrow, and Professor Pig. And if you haven't heard about that, check out my video I did on that a couple months ago. Or actually, even a year ago at this point now, probably. But yeah, supposedly we were getting a Clayface movie. Now, is that still happening? Is that going to be separate from this? Or is that story going to be folded into the Batman Part 2? And the other complication when it comes to the character of Clayface is, how is this even going to work? Because obviously Clayface is a big clay mud monster, and we know that Matt Reeves, with his Batman universe, he wants to keep things more grounded, not quite as grounded as Christopher Nolan did in his films, but grounded. Like the Riddler, that was a very grounded take and approach on the character. And we talked about obviously one of the biggest hopes and wishes for the Batman Part 2 after the first movie came out was a Mr. Freeze in the Batman Part 2, and we talked a lot about how that character could still be used in a more grounded form. And Clayface is a similar character, but there's more of a divide here, because it would be hard to do the big mud monster. That's the version I grew up with. That's the character that I know as Clayface. So would I love to see that? Yes. Do I think it is definitely possible? Yeah. But as many people have talked about in the past, I feel like it is more likely we will get the Golden Age version of Clayface, which for those who don't know, again, I've talked about it in the past, but I'll talk about it again. Golden Age Clayface was introduced originally as a character who was just an actor who turned to a life of crime, and he was not this big shape-shifting mud monster. He was instead just a regular guy who was just really good at prosthetics and makeup effects, and he had this mask made out of clay. And especially seeing actually in real life the prosthetics and makeup that was used on the first Batman movie, on Penguin, and on Joker as well, like, I would be really interested in seeing something similar to that actually being folded into the story of the movie itself. I think that would be a really cool idea. And I think that'd be really interesting as an approach to do this. Again, that would be a very grounded, real take on the character. Now, my theory is that you could do that, but then also, like, maybe for the final battle, you could do a final transformation into at least a version of the Mud Monster, because I really want to see that. Like, that would be really cool to see. But the other interesting thing about Clayface, so these reports about the March 2024 start date and Clayface being involved have been corroborated today by Casey Walsh, who of course is a known scooper that we've talked about frequently on the channel, both this channel and the Marvel Life. But one thing he mentioned is that, yes, Clayface will be in the Batman Part 2, but that may not be the first time we see him. We may possibly see Clayface debut in the Penguin HBO Max series, or as it's just called now, Max. So this is interesting, because if you're just hearing about this for the first time, you may think this is a wild, crazy idea. Why would Clayface be introduced in the Penguin HBO Max series? Well, I made a video about this. Again, I don't remember exactly how long ago it was. Maybe it was a year ago, maybe it was a couple months ago. But there was a leaked casting sheet for Clayface, for the Penguin series that was out on 4chan. And of course, 4chan, it's always a mixed bag over there. It's completely anonymous, so sometimes it's like real legit leaks. Sometimes it's just complete garbage that people are just making up and spitting out on there. And there's a character on there that sounded remarkably similar to the character of Clayface. And so I made a video about that and theorizing about how Clayface could be involved in the series. There was also a character that sounded very similar to Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask. And these are characters, Black Mask obviously makes a bit more sense, but Clayface, how could Clayface work in the Penguin series? Well, again, if you are doing the Golden Age version of Clayface, where he's kind of a serial killer who's just going around with this master of disguise technique, we know Penguin, that's going to be a lot of setting up what Gotham City is post the Batman, post Flood, and all that stuff. I mean, literally the whole synopsis of the series is Oswald Cobblepot rising up in power after, Gotham is kind of a wasteland right now. This would be a perfect opportunity to set up, plant the seeds, and introduce the character of Clayface, probably Basil Carlo, or it depends on which version of Clayface they end up doing. Matt Flanagan, I believe, is another version, or Matt Hannigan, I think. Whichever one, you could introduce that. You could have that just be a thing that is, maybe he would be a supporting character in the series that would be really set up, and maybe you could follow his origin story in the Penguin series, or maybe it would just be a little background thing or a cameo at the end, just to kind of set up that, hey, there's this person who has this presence in Gotham City. His profile is kind of rising and is now going to be on the radar of a lot of people, like in this next movie, The Batman. So that, I think, makes a lot of sense and would be really cool. And again, like I said, if you do both the Golden Age and the Big Mud Monster, Penguin series, you could do the focus on the Golden Age version, the more grounded Clayface, and then do that a little bit more in the Batman Part 2, and then build up to that Big Mud Monster in a final battle, third act type thing for the Batman Part 2. Again, I don't know how likely it is, because we know Matt Reeves wants this grounded universe, but I really, really want the Big Mud Monster. But again, we will see whether that actually ends up happening or not. So anyways, guys, what do you think about this news? What do you think about these reports? This isn't being officially reported on by Warner Bros. Discovery or DC or Matt Reeves or anything like that. These are just reports that are coming out, but from very reliable sources. The Batman Part 2 will start filming in March 2024, and Clayface will be involved in this movie, and possibly maybe even appearing before that in the Penguin series, which we will be getting next year on Max. So we could be seeing Clayface's debut next year in 2024. So, anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.